I'll be wandering around somewhere.
You'll be wandering around. Do you want a microphone or not a microphone?
Oh, we've already
We've
already taken care of that.
Corky's managed that.
Wow. Thank you, Corky. So, please, for any of you here who have never met this wonderful lady before, well, you're in for a treat if you haven't, because she is truly embodiment of that we call spiritual in all aspects. Please welcome Reverend Dr. Ayleen.
Yay! Woo-hoo!
Oh, you do want the microphone? Okay.
Yes, I'll just go ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So to start off and get us kind of in that Druid vibe, I'm going to ask you to repeat the lines of a Druid prayer. So just repeat after me. Grant us, O Spirit, your protection.
Grant us, O Spirit, your protection.
And in protection, strength.
And in protection, strength.
And in strength, understanding.
And in strength, understanding.
And in understanding, wisdom.
And in understanding, wisdom.
And in wisdom, the wisdom of balance.
And in wisdom, the wisdom of balance.
And in the wisdom of balance, the love of it.
And in the wisdom of balance, the love of it.
And in the love of it, the love and acceptance of all existences.
And in the love of it,
The love and acceptance of all existences. And in that love, the love of all creation.
and in that love, the love of all creation. Thank you.
In
So it is.
By earth, sea, and sky, blessed be, amen, whatever.
We're good, okay.
We're good. So, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And as you can see, I'm kind of decked out in,
Druid wear.
my other work clothes. And it is the celebration of the Druid New Year, the Celtic New Year, and New Years from all over the world. Now, because of the fact that in, way a long time ago, most of our cultures were based around the agricultural seasons, the harvest, the planting, all of that, the idea that this was the end of the year because it was the end of the harvest. The last of what could be gathered has been gathered. And it starts that time of darkness. And among Druids, this holiday, which SamhainHalloween, and there's a dozen different names for it, which are really amazing. The idea is that everything has come to completion, and this really signifies that time of death that precedes rebirth. And often, there's a lot of different cultures who focus on the dead at this time, on those who have passed. In Japan, they have the Festival of Souls, and they have candles that are lit inside little things that kind of float up.
Yeah.
And in China, they have tomb cleanings. And, there's a few different cultures. They also do it in the Philippines, I believe, where they actually open up the tombs and the bones of the dead are taken out and they're polished and they're cleaned. And there's reverence held for them, and then they're placed back in. And in the home of my father's lineage, Nollins, this time of year is very, very active. They, since all the tombs are, it's like these little cities, which it's very strange to see all these little cities of small white buildings. Because basically, if you dig a hole 3 feet deep, it is going to fill with water, since it is below sea level. So the idea of having the tombs, it's there to protect, but it's also there so that people can come back and they can commemorate it. These are homes. It's not that they're places of the dead. They're places of the last remains, or it's the last home of the remains of your loved ones. So the idea of death and birth and rebirth and re-death, these cycles that go constantly and are moving constantly. We're always in motion. We're always changing our own personal seasons as well as the seasons around us. Yet, each one is unique. that same season, that same experience is never, ever, ever going to happen again in the universe in exactly the same way it did. The moment that we have here, and I've done talks on this celebration many times, but no two were the same. I get up every morning, I follow a routine, and yet there's always something a little bit different about it. So it's true the wheel turns, but the way I view it, it turns as if it's on a road. It doesn't turn in one place. As each turning happens, I'm further and further and further down the path, and I'm further down the road. And each thing that I learned on the last turning is going to help me in the next. So, as we look at all of the pieces of the world around us, I mean, we don't predominantly live in an agricultural society anymore. That's true. I mean, there's still some who dedicate themselves to farming in the seasons. And for the most part, we live in a world that is almost one without seasons. I mean, we've got the weather that changes, but pretty much, I mean, as soon as we get out of school and we no longer have summer vacation, it's like it's just one long run through the year. I mean, remember the days of summer vacation? It was like, oh my gosh, it's the last week before summer vacation. It's the last day before summer vacation. Everybody's watching the clocks, including the teachers. Oh God, can we get out of here? I want to let these kids out. And then it turns. And there's that moment of freedom, that moment of celebration before your parents have got all the list of chores that you're going to be doing over the summer. That usually hits Monday. But for that moment, it is that freedom. It is that celebration and that moving forward. Now, was leaving for summer vacation the same in elementary school as it was when you were in high school? No. The first day of summer meant it's like, all right, I'm going to get me that summer job at Great America. I'm going to hang out with my friends. I'm going to go do these things. And it comes at a more matured level. Summer vacation as a parent is not the same as when it was in high school. Then it becomes, oh God, the kids are going to be home for 3 months. I've got to keep them entertained. We've got to get summer school. We've got to do all this stuff. And then the wheel turns again. So each of these moments has its own life cycle. Each and every moment of your life, each and every experience of your life, every relationship, every job situation, everything, each one has its own little life. And that life has a cycle. Often in relationships, there's a life cycle to it. There's the saying, a person is in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And that just means that there's a lifespan to every relationship. Sometimes it changes. Sometimes it creates that point where, okay, our contract is done. And you bless each other and people go in different directions. Or that would be optimum. It's like, I hate you, I never want to see you again. Okay, that's the other side of it. But it's a life cycle that occurs. So, because of the fact that the Druids are focused on balance, Korthromayak igak ruid, balance in all things. Sometimes that's really tough. It's tough to view those hard things in a balanced way. It's tough to find the eye of the storm sometimes. And at this time of the year, it's that time when you let go of what didn't work. If the crop did not grow as you intended it to, maybe you planted beets and turnips came up, or maybe, you planted something and it didn't grow as you expected. Being upset about it is not going to reverse the fact that it didn't happen the way you wanted. And when we look at those things that were our crops, our families, our relationships, our work, projects that we wanted to get accomplished, those, pesky New Year's resolutions. And when you look at the stuff that didn't happen the way you wanted it or it didn't come in, this is the time that you accept that it wasn't what you wanted it to be. For whatever reason, it's not about anybody's fault. It's not, oh man, I wasn't a good person and I was lazy or I was this or I was that and I didn't get this done. It's not about that. It's about acknowledging the simple fact that something did not get done in the way that you wanted it to. So, what do you do with it? You let it go. You allow it to be exactly what it was. You don't judge it or yourself for it. Maybe you did everything absolutely right and it turned out that way anyway. No matter what, I mean, it's an interesting story to go, okay, well, what could I have done differently? Well, that reframes it. Then you get to the gift of it. The reason that it didn't get done was because you were supposed to learn something from it. To learn to do something different. To revise the blueprint. To allow yourself permission to not have been perfect. Don't judge yourselves. You know, that's a lot of wasted energy. Don't consider what could have been done different. What should have been done different. Wow, I probably should not have gotten angry and said that hurtful statement to someone. Probably. And maybe they learned something from it. Maybe you learned something from it. What they did was take a look at the crops that didn't grow. It wasn't about, well, it's his fault because he did this and he did that and his sheep came in and ate my stuff and, you know, whatever. These were the things that did not go as planned, and here's what we are going to do based on what we learned. It is going to be better because it got messed up. And often in life, usually we learn the most from the stuff that got messed up. Mm-hmm. I honestly, looking back, the most powerful, important lessons I had were pretty much when I messed up and messed up bad. You know, there are very few personal epiphanies that happen at Disneyland. No, it's when you're in the dark and stinky that the epiphanies come up. If nothing else, then I am not ending up in the dark and stinky again. So looking at your blueprint, letting go of the things, and giving yourself permission to let it go. You don't have to keep punishing yourself over it. The farmers don't spend all winter locked up, dwelling on the crops that didn't make it. They put the plan in place on what is going to be. Now, one of the other practices among the Celts and, among other cultures is that the cattle and the livestock are gone through. Now, there's only so much resource, feed and all of that stuff that they have available for the winter. Maybe they've got enough feed and resources and space to be able to protect, 15 of the cattle, but you've got 20 cows. What happens? Well, you go through. You figure out which of the cattle are not going to make it. Which ones would probably not survive the harsh winter. And what they did was that they would, slaughter those. They would become food, but it was still held in reverence. They were still sacred in life, and their existence now would support those who were going to be, going through the winter, and the families and the clans and all of that. It did not make them less important. It did not make them nothing. In fact, it made them more important. They were vital. And yes, they were the weaker ones. Yes, they were the ones that would not be hardy enough not only to make it through the winter, but to be able to breed in the spring. But they were going to serve a very, very special purpose. So it wasn't that they were unappreciated. They were hugely appreciated and honored for the gift that they were giving to the community. The Druids believed that there is spirit in all things. Does that mean that that cattle are not slaughtered because that was a part of the life cycle? That was a part of the lifeblood of the community. They were not vegetarians. So the idea that each life was considered sacred, it just had a particular role within the scheme of the universe. And that when that spirit left that body, it would return and give the wisdom that it had acquired as a cow back into the universe. That's one of my favorite things about being a druid, is the belief that when I pass from this life, everything that I learned, every heartbreak, every achievement, every devastatingly embarrassing moment, everything will become a gift. And all of the shame and blame and hard feeling and story gets peeled away until there's nothing left but wisdom. And that wisdom is returned to the universe. We believe that it's given back to the great tree, the world tree, and it becomes a leaf on that tree. And my experiences, my pain, makes the entire universe wiser and more compassionate. Not so bad. Not so bad. That each thing you go through, if you consider, yes, frankly, this sucks. As I always say, it's fun until it isn't, and it sucks until it doesn't. And those moments that suck, the one thing that I know is, man, the universe is going to get a lot out of this moment. The universe is really going to learn a lot from this particular thing. Death is not really letting go of a loved one. It is letting go of their physical form. And there's nothing wrong with really loving that physical form. To this day, I remember my mother's smile. And it has been a lot of years. I remember the way that, my father used to sit in his chair as if he were a king. He had his chair in his office and he would hold court. And I remember how he would sit and slightly rock back. I remember my sister laughing, at jokes we would share. I honor those forms that they chose, and I will always remember them. My dog Rocky, and how he would lean against me and, rub his face up against my cheek to wake me up. It's amazing how it's the little things you remember most. And you can remember them with joy when it's time. I consider grief a gift. It's a really tough thing to be in, but I consider it such a huge gift because it allows me to let go of the stuff, the regret, all of that, even my anger at them. And then when I get to the other side of it, all I remember is the gift. It's a part of the human condition. It's a part of how we work through this life. It's a part of how we appreciate this life. And looking at those traditions that celebrate everything in the cycle. The wheel turns, the wheel turns. It is always going to turn because it always has. Those who feel that they're stuck. We all get those moments, oh my God, I am so stuck. It feels like nothing's moving, but everything is moving. It's just hard to tell when you're in the middle of it. You can't see the whole river as it flows. You're just there in that one spot that seems to be this little swirling whirlpool. But you are moving. You're growing. Things shift, things change. And as we go into the time of darkness, it's not anything to be scared of. Because you've got your community. You've got the people around you. You're not huddled somewhere by yourself in the dark. You've got an entire community that stands with you. I really like the song, We Are One, the one we did this morning, because it is that sense of we are everything. We are everyone. Nobody can be alone if each one of us is all of us. And there are times when, we've got to stand up and do some stuff, deal with some stuff on our own a little bit. we're surrounded by prayers, but there are times when we've kind of got to just sweat through the yucky parts. It's a lot easier to sweat through it ourselves than to have somebody near us go through it. I keep reminding myself I have to go back to balance in all things. How much help should I give? You know, if I have my stores for the winter and I know how much my family needs and I have extras, yes, you know, it is the Celtic way that if you have enough for yours, you know, to meet their needs, anything extra is distributed. It's given maybe to, you know, someone who, you know, the woman who lost her husband so she wasn't able to harvest as much. So, you know, the idea of sharing what you can share. The trick comes when you give away the stores that you need for the winter. And then there you are stuck. Wow, gee, I really shouldn't have given all of that away. Maybe I should have, you know, kept what I needed. As healers, we do that all the time. We don't do it on a physical level, but we will do it on an energetic level. Oh, well, this person, you know, I have to be there for them. No, you don't. You choose. We all choose. And I'm more than most people I know make that choice way more often than I probably should. And that is a part of the blueprint that I'm working on. I had a woman who experienced a breakdown and systematically alienated everybody around her but me. I was the one person she would call, and she called often. And it reached a place where I had to tell her, I am happy to be a part of the answer, but I cannot be the only answer. And she got tremendously angry, sent me a text message filled with expletives and really interesting phrasings about, you know, my ancestry. And I let it go. It's like, okay, Creator, this one's yours. And after 2 months, she contacted me, left me a tear-filled message about how badly she felt about what she said, and, you know, she wanted me back in her life, and she'd understand if I didn't want to be back in her life, but she just wanted me to know she was sorry. So I called her up and, you know, checked to see how she's doing, and she made the comment, well, and you're the only one who I wanted to apologize to.
Oops.
And the wheel turns. Which is great. And I told her, well, I appreciate that. And I still cannot be the only answer. So we need to figure out some boundaries. And we will talk about those boundaries. It's okay to set boundaries. It's okay to hold on to the crops that you need. It is okay to put yourself first, because if you do not, then there's no way you can be the person you want to be for other people. Honestly, I tell myself every day, the world will survive nicely without me. It will. No. It may not be happy doing it, but it will survive nicely. And actually, if I've done the things that I should have done, people can go, oh, okay, well, she's not here, but what would she have, you know, suggested? I remember that one time she told me that I could fix this myself by, you know, taking a clearing bath or using sage, or, you know, because the whole point is that I don't have to be here. Because one day I'm not. And I'm okay with that. It's leaving the legacy of, wow, I can take care of myself better now because of something that was shown to me. I have huge gratitude for the teachers who came before me, because they're not here now. But they gave me the gifts so that I could be. They knew, you know what? Out of the nest. you're good, honest. When I would say, well, I don't have all the answers, it's like, neither do we. You figure it out. And that's what you teach. You teach people to accept it's okay to figure it out. And it's okay to get it wrong. So looking at, this time, the time of introspection, which I've always thought really weird because, it's the time that we're supposed to be going into that quiet introspection place and hearing commercials. Only 8 more weeks till Christmas. Oh, God.
Well, that introspection time.
Yeah, it's like, that lovely introspection time over at the mall or Toys R Us, where everything is running, everybody's moving. And it's that acceleration that's in direct opposition to what we should be doing, which is having quiet time.
Online shopping.
Yes, online shopping. The meditation music playing in the background. Amazon Prime. Ooh. You even have to put notes in it. Merry Christmas.
In my own handwriting.
Yes. Being able to take time, because sometimes we make ourselves so busy that we don't have the time to look at our own stuff. Mm-hmm. When the farmers were looking at what worked, what didn't, what they needed to do, they didn't involve themselves with another farmer's work. It's like, no, I've got to focus on my crop, and then once the spring comes, we'll figure out whose plan works with whose. But it's important to allow yourself to have that space, because it's sacred and because it's never, ever, ever going to happen again. There may be similar moments, but that exact moment, each moment we had, is never, ever happening again. It never did, and it never will. It's right now. So appreciate it. Enjoy it. Both the sunshine and the rain. Both the parts that are fun and the parts that aren't. The people that drive us crazy and the people that drive us crazy but for a much better reason. It lets us acknowledge at this time of year more than at any other time of year that we survived. We made it. We're here. No matter what happened, no matter what hard thing, and I know that there are many in here who have had such hard things happen to them. Not just in the past year, but throughout their lives. Those moments when it's like, you know what, I can't do this. And yet consider that no matter how hard it got, you made it through 100% of the adversities that you face. 100%. It may not have been pretty, but you got through all of them. We all did. And that's something to be thankful for. No matter what your tradition, it never hurts to throw out a thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ayleen, could you tell a little bit, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Sure.
some people have never heard the word druid before.
Oh, is anybody here who does not know what a druid is?
Oh,
Yeah.
they're hiding.
Okay. Oh, very hiding. The Druids were a part of the Celtic tradition, and they became, always were, stewards of the balance in the universe. Most people have heard about Stonehenge and Merlin, the magician, who was probably one of the more famous Druids. There is not a lot known about the Druids because they wrote nothing about themselves. Everything that was known about the Druids, really, that wasn't passed down, was supplied by those who actually were out to destroy them, which was a very interesting paradigm. The Druids seemed to come out of nowhere. Before they were in the British Isles, they were in Galicia, Spain. Before Galicia, Spain, they were in Portugal. They have had relics of the Celtic tradition from all over the world. And so there really is a lot of mystery about them. But the main thing that was known was that they were deeply, deeply connected to the spirit world and to the natural elements. In the Druidic universe, there are 7 elements. There's fire, water, earth, air, light, sound, and thought. Light, sound, and thought are considered their own elements. And the idea that, the spirit is eternal. That's one of the pillars of Druidry. That everything has spirit. That the ancestors are to be honored. And that we exist in one of many, many worlds, in many, many realms. So that idea of this eternal recycling, or in Gaelic it's Tuergan, it is the circuit of births. We come out of one life, move into another, and where you end up is where you end up. It's your contract. And so the Druids always felt that it was important to view things objectively, and the only way you could do that was by gaining as much knowledge as possible. So they went out and they learned things. The bards were the first level of being a Druid, and they went everywhere, and the way that news was transmitted was through songs and plays that were performed in order to amuse various communities. But it was also a way to get information about what was going on in different kingdoms, bring it back to the Druids, and they would devise the laws. And there would be meetings and gatherings where all the laws were brought up, and they go, okay, what worked, what didn't, what are the bards telling us about this? Then they might revise the law, and they would give the revised law to the bards, and the bards would go back out into the communities and say, okay, here's the song about the new laws. So it was, they were pretty much spread out all over the place. The next level in the Druidic training was the Ovate. The Ovate focused on a community. The Ovate were the local healers, they were the soothsayers, they were the magicians, they were the fortune tellers, they were the midwives, they were the hedge witches. There's an actual division of Druids that are witches, and they are from the Bardic tradition. Because when the Druids were attacked and thought to be wiped out, they knew it was going to happen, so they separated the bards into Bardic colleges. So they were only viewed as entertainers, so they were left alone. And the witches that are the Druidic version of witches are called Gwedins. Mm-hmm. And the Gwedins are, they have their lineage straight from the bards. So it's very, very cool. And so, the Ovates were maybe a part of 1 or 2 communities, but they were very much loved. They were, hey, my cow can't give birth, or my wife can't give birth. Either way, the Ovate dealt with it. The third level of Druid was the full Druid. And they stayed fairly, solitary in that they did not deal that much with the communities. They were the lawmakers. They were the advisors of kings. And I've mentioned this before, that it was said that if the white robes of a Druid were seen on a battlefield, the battle stopped. The commanders had to come forward, and they had to explain to the Druid what the battle was about, and it was up to the Druid to decide if the battle could continue. So they were tremendously socially powerful. And they also crossed over into other dimensions and other worlds in order to find out information, to gain more wisdom. Druids did not write down anything because it was believed that it was very easy to pick something up and read about how to do something without having the wisdom to know whether or not you should. So they were very particular. What was taught to someone was taught to them because it was deemed by their teachers they were ready and mature enough for it.
Wow.
So yes.
It was men and women?
Mm-hmm. There are not, that's interesting, I'm glad you bring that up, because there are some schools of thought that the Druids were primarily male, which, in research showed it was not true. There are some authors, I read a book that by one author who was very male-oriented, and he flat out said there were no female Druids.
Well,
and it's like, no. The sources of information that I normally go to are a group called the OBOD, which is the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids. That's in England. That is one of the largest Druidic fellowships on the planet. There is also ADF, which is Arndraat Fine, a fellowship of Druids. And they are also, one of the largest. They're like, OBOD and ADF are like, neck and neck for who's number one. And they have spent many, many, many years collecting data and collecting information. These are excellent sources for Druidic information. And, there is there are some who believe that only women were Druids.
So, if nothing was written down, how did they?
Just like the Native Americans.
Yeah, most of it was word of mouth. It was taught through the
So
lineages.
it's totally word of mouth.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, and yes, because of that, there is very little documentation as far as rituals and ceremonies and things like that. And there's a lot of stories, there are a lot of traditions from places in the world where the Druids were still honored, even if it was secretly.
So perhaps since the Druids didn't write it themselves, that it was other people writing about them. That's the data they're finding.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, some of them were the agents who were designed to destroy them. So, it was a challenging time, but they survived. They remain, under wraps. Yes.
Other than the Halloween veil that time, are there other vestiges of Druidism that we see that we practice every day?
Well, the use of mistletoe.
Okay.
Mistletoe was, called, or the name of it means all heal. Now, mistletoe is a powerful neurotoxin. Do not make a tea of mistletoe unless you know what you're doing. Or if you do, please write down, Dr. Ayleen told me not to do this. That way I'm not going down on that one. So being able to utilize that as a healing plant, and there are many studies on it now. The Romans were not, or at first they were very big fans of the Druids, but later on not so much when they tried to destroy them. Which is why in no Roman Catholic church will you see mistletoe at Christmas. They are not allowed to have mistletoe within the church because of its strong connection to the Druids. So, hey, we don't hold a grudge. We're cool. Yes, Regina.
Do the Catholic priests know that now?
There are some who think it's a little bit silly. But in general, it is kind of the stated rule. Yes?
Isn't the Christmas tree part of, put down from that too?
It is not specifically Druid, but it was during that time. And the idea is that you're protecting an aspect of nature in your home as a way of doing sympathetic magic to help bring it back in the spring, which is also why at Samhain they had the bonfire. Everyone in the community lit a torch from the bonfire and took it to their homes, and they had to keep an aspect of that torch or that bonfire lit because it was the sympathetic magic to bring the sun back.
so you till a tree to make sure that they grew in the spring?
Yeah.
Sacrifice.
It's a sacrifice.
Yeah, and because it was not viewed that it actually died, it was the spirit changed form. All you were doing was maintaining what had been the outer form.
Okay.
I
Yes.
was thinking that stick, could that been that they brought in from the bonfire, so that's October. I was thinking Yule logs for that one. How some of it got transferred over.
Well, that it's similar. That's a different type of tradition, but it is amazing. So what I would like before I finish up is I want to share with you the Druid Ninefold blessing for this season.
Also, remark that as you view it, it's a fellowship, not a religion.
It's not a religion, no.
As I practice it as a vocation. I do not practice Druidry as a religion, although it lends itself beautifully as a spiritual practice, and there are many who do practice it as a religion. Okay. Blessed be my feet, which carry me upon this path. Blessed are my knees, which allow me to bend or stand firm. Blessed are my hips, which cradle my passion. Blessed is my heart, which sees with love. Blessed are my shoulders, which bear these burdens with joy. Blessed are my hands, which work with strength and gentleness. Blessed are my lips, which speak with justice and kindness. Blessed are my eyes, which see the beauty of the world. Blessed is my mind, which rejoices in knowledge and truth. By earth, by water, by air, and by fire, I purify my body, my mind, my spirit, my whole being, for the good of all, for the harm of none. So be it.
So be it. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I can have the choir come on up. We are